Hello everyone, how are you all doing? Now in this video, I will be covering some very important points that will be keeping people stuck. Whether you've been stuck for a long time, doesn't matter the severity, doesn't matter how long you've been stuck, but ultimately I'll be picking out some key, very vital points as to why you remain stuck. If you find you've been in for a little while, if you find you've been stuck with OCD for a little while and things aren't shifting, things aren't changing, you're not really seeing that much noticeable progress, really think about some points I'm about to make on this call. Because when I remained stuck, when I saw there was no progress being made, and also what I see in coaching calls as well, you've got to really look at this. What is it that I'm continuing doing today? What am I prolonging today and expecting different results? Okay? Because ultimately, the reason things aren't changing is because you are not making that change. You're not tweaking things. You're not trying different things. Okay? And I'm talking about, are you still clinging on to the same irrational beliefs? Are you completely refusing and very reluctant to look at your fear differently, to try and shift your beliefs in a different way, to be proactive, okay, to use your initiative, to think outside the box and how you're disputing, okay, because recovery can't be spoon-fed to you, okay? We can't come and hold your hand and guide you to recovery. We can't make you recover. We are here to guide you, we're here to support you, we're here to advise you and take the best possible suitable steps for you, but ultimately, you are going to recover yourself. You have to be accountable for your own recovery journey. And that's very important to hear, because otherwise you can just sit back, take a step back and go, Sam, you do all the work, I'll sit back, I'll oversee everything you're doing, and I'll put the thumbs up when I'm recovered. Doesn't quite work like that way, because you've got to take the advice on board, think about what we're saying, apply it to your own specific fear. In one-to-one calls, we will target your specific fears, the beliefs keeping you stuck, the compulsions keeping you stuck, your main core fears that OCD is latching to, and we'll look at that. But ultimately, it's down to you to take that knowledge on board and really use that to help your own recovery, to benefit you, okay? Rather than just waiting to calls to then hear insight and then doing nothing about it. Something that I did for years. I remember going on calls with Rob. I didn't even start disputing for about 6 months into the journey, even after reading the first book, for example, because I thought if I just go on calls with Rob, I'll get information from him. Then I can just go, right, that'll fix something, do nothing, go on the next call. Okay, great, good, I'm motivated, do nothing, next call. And I started to realise that you can't just go from call to call, hearing information and doing nothing. Right? You wouldn't go to a language class, go to a language, learn a language and do nothing for 2 weeks and then go back into the class, have 30 minutes listening to somebody speaking Spanish, to somebody speaking German, to somebody speaking French and then doing nothing about it. You'd have to go away and actually apply it to your own thinking so you pick up that language. And the recovery is very similar. Okay, so you're taking it away from what you're learning, from all the content in the WhatsApp groups, in the YouTube channel, on the Instagram page, in the books you're reading, especially this one, for example, The Myth of Self-Esteem by Albert Ellis, an excellent, truly excellent book, changed my life. All the other books on our reading list, just the continuation, the consistency of you putting in the work, that is how you're going to see results, okay? So I think the number one thing that I see that keeps most people stuck is what I just said then, the refusal to look at their fears and beliefs in different ways, okay? My job as a coach, that is probably the most frustrating thing that I see, okay? Because on coaching calls, we are prompting you, we are showing you how you can look at your fear, this is keeping you stuck, in a different way. How can you try and view that rationally? Doesn't mean you'll believe that. Of course you won't believe that, right? But just try and look at your fear in a different light. Try and shift some beliefs, because if you keep saying, no, I can't view it that way. I just can't view it that way. I can't apply acceptance. I can't apply compassion. I just can't even go towards that worst case scenario. But then you can't then complain that you remain stuck, okay? Because it's showing you right there why you're stuck, because of the beliefs you're holding, because of the things you're not altering, because of the things you're not changing. But then you turn around and say, yeah, but I just can't view that differently. I just can't do that exposure. That's too much. No, I'm going to have to do that compulsion, Sam. I'm afraid that compulsion keeps me safe. I'm going to have to do it. No, I'm not going to read the book. I ain't got time to read the book. I work a 9-to-5 day job. I can't read the book, right? Oh no, life structure, who gives a shit? On my days off, I get up at 11 a.m. I just laze around. I just scroll on my phone. I use adult websites a lot, I gamble a lot, I just, I don't really socialise, don't really get off my sofa, exercising, no, I overeat, I binge eat all the time. Look, I go to the extreme, but if you're not focusing on these things, you can't expect change, right? If you were building a business, right? If you're building a business, you want a profitable business, you wouldn't do the same thing over and over and over and over again, expecting change. Especially if your business was already non-profitable. If your business was already making a loss, right? If your business wasn't making the progress you'd like, it wasn't that upward trajectory, you wouldn't then just do the same thing over and over again, expect to see different results, right? Sometimes, yes, it requires patience. Sometimes, yes, the right strategy can require that consistency and patience and time. Yes, of course it can, right? But ultimately, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you will get the same result. That's tend to be how life works, and recovery's journey is the same. Okay, if you're not making any shifts, if you're coming in, let's say you're 3 years into your recovery journey and you've still got that chronic guilt and anxiety lingering away, you're still in that self-punishing cycle, you're still doing compulsions, you're still partaking in avoidance behaviours, you're not making those shifts that you're learning in calls and in the books, and you're not really disputing that where you're just doing it because Sam said so, you're just disputing because Nick said so, or Mom said so, or Rob, so you're not actually applying what you're learning, then you can't expect things to change. Okay, so the reluctancy to do anything about it, the sort of the entitlement, if you wish, that it will just, well, it shouldn't be this hard, it should be easier than this, one day it will go. Well, I'm sorry to really break your heart here, but anything worth fighting for, anything worth having takes patience, it takes grit, it takes determination, it takes work and practice over and over again, consistency. And trust me, recovery is very worth having. And I'm sure if you're seeing glimpse of freedom or glimpse of recovery, I'm sure you are if you've been in that kind of time, you'd have had days, you'd have had good days, right? You'd have had days where OCD has taken a back seat, maybe a good week, good month. But if you then keep going back into the thick black soup, as Albert Ellis calls it, the thick black soup of depression, anxiety, guilt, shame, you've got to think, well, what have I done? How have I got myself back into that? Yes, it can feel automatic at times, but ultimately there'll be something underlying, whether it's fear, whether it's fear of uncomfortable feelings, whether it's the fear of it coming back, whether you've gone back to your rigid black and white inflexible thinking, whether you've slipped back into the compulsive cycle, whether your life structure's taken a hit. All different factors at play, whether you've gone back down the avoidance cycle, which I did many times. So you've got to think, well, what has dragged me back into that thick black soup? What's dragged me back into that cycle again, okay? Because ultimately what got yourself out of that is going to get yourself out of it again, okay? Let's say you did do really well and you were coasting, you had a huge setback and now it feels like you're back at square one. You've got to think, well, what got me out of that in the first place, okay? Which leads me on to my next point, and that is that people chase their old self. People want their old self back. I can't tell you the amount of times I hear on calls, yeah, but Sam, I just want my old self back. And I say, forget your old self. Let go of your old self, because that is it's an endless pursuit, because you can't have your old self, right? Even somebody who isn't suffering from a mental health disorder can't just have their old self back. They can't just have their self from 2022 back, right? Because the human is ever changing. The human is a process. It's an ongoing process. It's a constant learning, evolutionary process, right? It's not just something where I'm going to go back to how I was in 1983 on that date. It doesn't exist, okay? Now, when people say that, they just want their feelings back. I know, they just want how they felt when they maybe felt at peace, when they maybe felt a bit more relaxed, when maybe there was no chronic guilt and anxiety, before OCD latched, before it gripped. I know, because I just say it all the time. Oh, I just want my old self back. Oh, I can remember going to that football match and enjoying it. Oh, I can remember just waking up and feeling excited. Oh, I can remember just not ruminating. Yes, we can all remember that. But wishing for that old self back will get us nowhere, I'm afraid. It will get us absolutely nowhere. And then it's just going to focus your attention, your energy, your effort on a wasted time, on a wasted route, a wasted journey, wasted avenue. You won't get anywhere that way, okay? So instead, think, well, yes, my old self was better, but think where your new self could be, a new, more rational, improved version of yourself, the new, healthier version of yourself, both physically and mentally. I certainly am. I'm certainly healthier physically with recovery, and I'm certainly healthier mentally because I'm more plugged into life. Life feels brighter, if you wish. So I can wake up and feel excited, just plug back in, genuine curiosity about life. self-interest, not self-neglecting, other interests, very interested in other people and their own beliefs and their own journeys and what's led them to people to get to where they are, and life itself, sort of the spontaneity of life and the randomness and the excitement of life. I'm plugged into that, right? Now, obviously when you're suffering, you're not. But wishing for your old self back, you're just going to stagnate. You're going to just stand there and I want my old self back, I want my old self back. That isn't going to solve any problem. That is not the solution, because ultimately on the 24th of July at 5:50 in the evening when I'm making this video, you're focusing on today. How am I prolonging my suffering today? How am I keeping my disturbance today? How am I fueling that disturbance today? Okay? Rather than 5 years ago, rather than how you felt 10 years ago, waste of your time. It will not fix anything. You've got to think, what am I doing today? How is that not helping me? What have I been doing for so long which wasn't helping me? How can I make tweaks? How can I make some adjustments? How can I view that in a different way? Because there's always going to be one thing that you can't accept. That's how it's always going to feel, right? When you're new on this journey, or when you've been in for a long time, doesn't really matter. OCD is looking for that next thing. It's looking for that next thing that you can't accept, which is why you remain stuck. The reason I'm not stuck, and the reason I have no chronic guilt and anxiety, the reason OCD is completely powerless for me, and the reason I can't even tell that it's there, is because I have true unconditional acceptance of myself, right? Or of others and life in general. Because OCD, when it used to always look for that next thing, got you on this, and it used to stay on something for months and years even, and I might get onto that and then find something else. And the reason it's doing that, the reason it isn't scanning for things now, is because I've got that true acceptance of me. If I've done wrong, if I've committed an act, if I've acted immorally, if I'm stuck forever, if I die at a young age, if I get ill, if I make a huge mistake, if I cause my own death or cause my own deterioration, if you wish, by doing a stupid thing, if I go to jail, if I lose control, all these different fears that it links to. So you've got to go towards that, because unconditional acceptance gets under that. And this is why this book is an absolute life changer, because it gets under that, right? It's not unconditional acceptance unless you do wrong. That's not unconditional. That is conditional. That's conditional self-esteem and conditional self-acceptance. Okay? Next thing I want to cover before this video goes on too long is just the lack of effort, the lack of discipline, right? Because I get so many people come into calls, and I did this myself, pretty much what I touched on earlier on the start of this video, going on calls with Rob and then doing nothing. I did nothing about it myself, just taking away information, doing nothing, right? So the lack of self-discipline. Recovery requires discipline. It requires day in, day out. Not obsessive, forceful recovery work, not just going, right, I need to make sure I get all nailed down today. No, but to recover, it will be a daily thing. Because let's say you're not even disputing in a day. Let's say you're disputing once a week, for example, or twice a week. Each day is still recovery work, because you're working on life structure, you're cutting out avoidance, you're still going to work, so you're focusing on things like that, maybe things that you've been putting off previously. So usually living life is just an exposure for OCD sufferers, because usually they go into an avoidance cycle, they go into an avoidance bubble, that restrictive bubble, which then prevents them from living life to the full, or doing things that they want to do, achieving their goals, aiding their happiness, and aiding their survival, if you wish, right? Because if you go into that self-neglecting cycle, overeating, not giving a shit about yourself, then you're going to not really help your survival very long, because you're going to just sort of deteriorate, you're going to not really give a shit, and you become sort of very sort of deflated, you just sort of that self-punishing cycle, you don't give a shit about yourself, which is never a healthy cycle to go down for obvious reasons. Okay, so it's important to be disciplined, okay, and that is with one eye on the future, so knowing that recovery takes time, knowing that anything worth having is going to take time, knowing you're going to have to face that short-term discomfort, that short-term pain, that short-term discipline for that long-term change. People don't change because it takes effort, it takes suffering, it takes struggle, it takes difficulty, it takes thinking, it takes ups and downs, it takes risks, right? If you're not willing to take that risk, if you've got no self-discipline at all, you're just settle for instant gratification. You're just settle for quick, easy pleasures, right? Hence why addictive behaviours come into it. Hence why I used to eat all the time, because I thought, oh, I'm feeling shit, where's me KFC, right? I'm feeling crap, let's just scroll on my phone. Feeling crap, let's use an adult website. I'm feeling crap, let's gamble, right? And that's what we'll fall down if we're not careful, because if you're just looking for that instant gratification all the time, and that short-term pleasure, and that short-term hedonism, then, or is it hedonism? I don't have to say that word, hedonism or hedonism, correct me if I'm wrong, but otherwise you're going to completely forget about what's going to get you to the end goal of recovery, okay? Because short-term gratification is the trap there, right? Anything worth having is often sacrificing that short-term. Now, I'm not saying you give no shit about the present. I'm not saying that, okay? I'm not saying you just focus solely on 2031, nothing else. I'm not saying that. You have one eye on the future because, let's be honest, if you're betting on the odds, you're probably going to live to about 80. Obviously, no guarantee, but the average life expectancy for a man is 79, I think for a woman's 82. So you're probably going to live that long. We all know there's no guarantee, but you've got to have one eye on the future, okay? But you also got to think about the present, because the 24th of July, which is when I'm recording this video, was once the future. That's now the present. That is now the now. That's now the current, right? That's now, right? So you work towards that future, but that soon becomes the now. So you've got to have one eye on the now, one eye on the future, okay? Because ultimately, we don't know how long we're going to be here for. There's no guarantee to anything, okay? But having no long-term goal, having no short-term self-discipline is going to just lead to erratic behaviour, silly behaviour, unusual behaviour. It's going to lead to just that short-term, each time short-term, with no focus on the long-term. And recovery is long-term because you're making short-term changes now. You're putting in the work in the short run for that ultimate long-term goal of recovery. No time frame, but we just know it's going to be long-term because recovery isn't easy. It's up and down, it's bumpy, it's setback, it's relapses, it's triggers hitting you out of nowhere, okay? But gradually that balances out and you become a more rational, more unconditionally accepting person of yourself and of how you view others and just life in general. You get very good at overcoming problems. You just get very good at adapting to problems and fixing problems, because ultimately OCD will probably be the biggest problem that you'll ever face. It's certainly my biggest problem that I've ever had in my life. Not to say it will be my biggest problem, it probably will be, but it certainly has been so far. So if you can overcome something like OCD, a very challenging mental health disorder, very challenging, then think of how you're going to view other problems. You don't become problem-free, you don't become hassle-free, because life involves hassle, life involves adversities, life is problems, right? But you get very good at adapting to them and adjusting to them and overcoming them as an obstacle. How can I, yes, this is an unfortunate problem, how can I fix it? Rather than complaining. No successful person that I know is complaining all the time. I just don't see them, because rather than complaining, they're focused on fixing the problem. So in this journey, you're training your brain like a muscle to just deal with problems. That robust recovery isn't just for OCD, it's for life in general. Because you get very good at applying the rational tools, the rational skills, just life skills, accepting the harsh realities of life. And rather than moaning, whining about things out of your control, you're focused on the things in your control. And the things that aren't in your control, you go towards acceptance. But the things that are in your control, you focus on overcoming that problem to get you to your goals that you're setting throughout your life. Okay, both short-term and long-term. Okay? If you are interested in one-to-one services, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com. You can get in touch with one of the coaches here. You've got me, Sam, you've got Rob, you've got Nick, you've got Mom, and you've got Gemma. You can also get in touch with our WhatsApp groups as well. That's also going to be very beneficial. Speaking to other people going through the same journey, same fears, same themes, different parts of the journey, yes, but just that extra support, that extra help. Okay, plus you get some great content in there on OCD and acceptance and rational thinking and compulsions and so on, all anything to do with OCD. So please email phil@ocdrecovery.com and you can get in touch. If you like this video, please leave a like and we will speak again. Bye-bye.